What does genius look like? Does it look like Einstein's theory of relativity, E equals mc squared? Does it look like Da Vinci's painting of the Mona Lisa, or Ted Williams swinging a left-handed baseball bat? Well, I'll tell you what genius looked like in the spring of 1781. It looked like a vertical log cabin filled with dirt soaring into the Georgia sky. And it had a cannon on top of it. This story begins in late May of a year that would become the most successful of years for America's remarkable revolution. And it was just in time. If our war for independence had been a football game, 1781 would be the fourth quarter and the score was close. The outcome? Unknown. Anybody's ball game. For the most part, the British had played very well up and down the colonial field much of the past 6 years. The Americans didn't have much to show for their efforts, but they were still in the game. They seemed to play best when they could get the redcoats away from the coast or a safe supply line. And that's what happened here in Augusta. The British, under Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Brown, had retreated into their fort, Fort Cornwallis, which sits about where St. Paul's Church is today. The British were in a pretty secure position, and despite the fact that they were surrounded by some of the Revolution's finest Patriot commanders, Andrew Pickens and Henry Light Horse Harry Lee, Robert E. Lee's father, they couldn't breach the walls with their guns or cannon. One historian said they couldn't get the terrain necessary to elevate their field piece to fire projectiles with any effectiveness. And that's when genius came knocking at the door. There are many different versions on who should get credit. Let's just say they all helped. A 2012 biography of Andrew Pickens by William Reynolds credits Robert E. Lee's father, Light Horse Harry, with suggesting they build a Mayham Tower, just as they had done in an earlier successful attack in South Carolina. In that instance, and facing a similar artillery challenge, an American often identified as Hezekiah Mayhem suggested a new version of an idea as old as medieval warfare. The soldiers outside the wall would construct a bulletproof tower with a cannon on top, allowing them the advantage of shooting down into the fort. As the American tower went up, the British hopes went down. They could see that if the Americans got the height advantage, they could shoot down into the fort. The British did everything they could think of to prevent this. They tried a raid to capture the tower before it was finished. They built their own tower within the fort and tried to use it to fire on the American construction without success. They even sent a soldier pretending to be a deserter whose real plan was to set the tower afire. Finally, Lieutenant Colonel Brown knew the game was up. He agreed to terms, including a day's delay for a very personal reason. By taking control of Fort Cornwallis, the American Patriots officially controlled Augusta, a situation that cheered both Georgia and South Carolina Patriots. As for the British and their Southern supporters, let me read the words of historian Charles C. Jones, Jr. The capture of Augusta, while it raised the spirits of the Republicans to a high pitch of exultation and encouraged the faint-hearted to emerge from their hiding places and stand up like men in the ranks of the Revolution, exerted a most depressing influence on the minds and hopes of the King's servants. We are now in a most wretched situation, British Governor Wright told his superiors. And that one-day delay that the British wanted, it really wasn't a mystery. You see, they didn't want to surrender on June 4th because that was King George III's birthday.